What's up, YouTube friends? Now, I've been requested by quite a few subscribers if I would do a face mask video. So I went right to Pinterest looking for ideas. And I found a style that I liked, and plus it was a free pattern. So the things you're going to need to make these face masks are a piece of fabric for the outside of the mask, and this is the part that's going to show. I'll be using this blue cotton camo, and I just went through my scrap bin and got a few scraps. You're also going to need another piece of cotton fabric for the lining. I'll be using this blue. You could also use flannel if you want, but it was just too hot for my face. I'll also be using a 20-inch piece of 1/4 inch elastic, and I wouldn't go anything bigger than that. And you're also going to need my pattern. Now, I saw many different styles and ways to make these on Pinterest, and actually I know a lot of you subscribers have made these and posted them on Facebook too. But I found a style that I liked, and it came from craftpassion.com. Her pattern is free, and she had 4 different sizes. However, I have a large and in charge, chunky yet funky face, and her largest adult size did not fit my big dome. So I went ahead and used her pattern to mock it up and make one that fits my head. I'm calling this the extra large dust mask. Now, I will leave this as a free printable down below, but I'm also going to link her website. She has great written instructions, and she's done all the sizing work for you. I'll also be using my sewing machine with matching thread, my iron and ironing board. I'll be using my pinking shears, and a chopstick or a bone folder. So let's get started. So the first thing I always do is make a cardboard template. Now, if you're going to use Craft Passion's template, read the directions first. You're going to need to add a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and also for the outside fabric, on the ear side, you're going to add 1 inch. Now, if you're going to use my extra large pattern, I've done everything for you already. The 1/4 inch seam allowance is already here, and I've already added that inch. So all I did was cut out my pattern, got myself a cracker box, I traced around it and cut it out. This is going to be my outside template. I then just cut off this inch piece, grab some more cardboard, traced it out, and cut it out. This is going to be my lining piece. So now I'm just going to take my outside fabric and my outside template, and I'm going to cut 2 pieces. I have this folded in half and then folded in half again, so I'm going to be able to get 2 face masks out of this piece of fabric. So now with my rotary cutter, I'm just going to cut it out. So now I'm going to take my lining fabric. I also have it folded in half and then folded in half again, and then just do the same thing. Now I'm just going to grab 2 pieces of my outside fabric and 2 pieces of my lining. I'm going to lay it so that the right sides are facing each other. With this lining, it really doesn't matter. And now I'm going to take this over to my sewing machine, and with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, I'm going to backstitch at the beginning and the end, and I'm going to sew down the curved part on both my outside and my lining. Alright guys, so I'll be using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'll be using a straight stitch, and my length is a 2.5. So I'm going to backstitch in the beginning and just keep sewing. Don't forget to backstitch at the end, and I'm going to do the same thing with my lining piece. So now we're just going to press our seams to opposite sides. And to do that, you want your fabric facing the same direction. So I have my curves on the left side here. I'm going to take my hot iron and then just kind of go with the curve. So now just do the same thing with your lining piece. So now I'm going to take this back over to my sewing machine, And I'm going to use a zigzag stitch, and I'm going to sew right down that seam we just sewed. Now that's just going to keep our seam allowance laying flat when we go to sew these two together. And you could just use a straight stitch if you wanted to, but I found it easier just to do a zigzag stitch. So I'm going to do that both to my outside and my lining piece. So this time I'll be using a zigzag stitch. I'm going to bump up my length to a 3 and my width to a 4. And I like to start on the flatter end of my face mask. My seam is going to run right in the middle of my presser foot. So I'm going to backstitch. And then I'm just going to sew all the way down. So I'm going to make sure that my seam allowance is pressed to the right side and everything's laying nice and flat. And then I'm going to do the same thing with my lining piece. So now I'm going to take my outside piece with the right side facing out. I'm then going to take my lining piece so that the right side is facing down, and I'm going to match up my seams. So your seam allowance should nestle together nicely, and then I'm just going to stick a pin. And then you just want to match up your raw edges. And I like to throw in a few more pins. Next, I'm just going to go to the bottom and do the same thing. So it should look like this, and you should have an inch on either side of your outside fabric showing. Now I'm going to go back over to my sewing machine, and with the same 1/4 inch seam allowance, I'm going to start where my lining is and backstitch. And I'm going to sew all the way across, backstitching at the end. I'm going to do it at the bottom and at the top. So this time I switched back to my straight stitch and my length's back to a 2.5. I'm going to start right here where my lining begins, and I'm going to backstitch. And then just keep sewing. So now I'm just going to stop with my needle down right on my seam. I'm going to raise my presser foot, and I'm just going to turn it just a little bit. And sew. So now I'm just going to flip it around and do the other side. And just like before, I'm going to pink the edges. And as you can see, I'm not really taking that much off from the seam allowance. And at this time, I'm also going to pink this raw edge right here. So now I'm just going to reach inside and turn the whole thing right side out. And with my bone folder or a chopstick, I'm just going to make sure that my seams are nice and flat. And then just give the whole thing a nice press. Alright guys, so I have this nice and pressed flat, and you should have these little flaps here on your earpieces, and that's exactly what you want. So now I'm just going to take this back over to my sewing machine, and I'm going to top stitch with an 1/8 inch seam allowance, back stitching at the beginning and the end, and I'm going to top stitch on the top and on the bottom. Now this time I'll be using an 1/8 inch seam allowance to top stitch. I'm going to start all the way at the end and back stitch, and then just sew. Just flip it around and do the other side. So now you just want to go to your ear flaps, and I'm going to fold this over a scant 1/4 of an inch. And then give it a press. Now I'm just going to fold that over right where my lining starts. And then give that a press, and that's just going to be our pocket for our elastic. And just to make sure that stays down, I'm just going to add a clip. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So now I'm just going to take this over to my sewing machine and sew down that flap. Don't forget to backstitch at the beginning and the end, and I'm going to get as close to this little fold here as I can. Alright, so I'm still using that straight stitch, and I'm going to backstitch. So now I'm going to grab my 20-inch piece of elastic and a safety pin. So I'm just going to thread it through one side. And then I'm going to go back down through the other side. Next, I'm going to overlap my elastic by about a 1/2 inch, and I'm going to take this over to my sewing machine, and with a zigzag stitch, I'm just going to sew my 2 pieces of elastic together. Now I'll be switching back to the zigzag stitch. My length is back at a 3, and my width is back at a 4. And then I'm just going to go back and forth 3 or 4 times. So now we're just going to hide this part in one of these seams. And just like that, our face mask is done. And I'll show you what these look like on my big head. So here is the one that I made for this video, and I'll try it on for you. So this does go under my chin, which I really like, and it just fits my face nicely. Now here's a red one that I made with this bandana material. I lined it with black, and I'm also going to try this one on just so we can have a social distancing fashion show. And here's how this one looks. Now I really like the look of this fabric, so I'm probably going to make a few more of these for myself. And after this is all said and done, I can easily use these as dust masks for when I'm spray painting or when I'm sanding furniture. I have the same problem with those disposable ones, that they just don't fit my face very well. When these get clogged, I can just toss them in the wash machine and I'll have fresh, clean dust masks. Now like I mentioned, I did get this pattern from Craft Passion. Now in the beginning I did make the largest size that her pattern offers, and I'll try it on and I'll show you why I didn't like it or why it didn't fit my big head. As you can see, it's just a little too small for my face. When I talk, my nose gets exposed. And if I pull it up more, then my chin pops out. It also felt uncomfortable for me right here on the sides, and it just pushed out all this fat. Not a cute look. Now there's nothing wrong with her pattern, it just didn't fit my face, so that's why I enlarged it. She has different ways to attach the elastic. I chose to go around my head and on top of my head. It just fit better for me, but you can also just cut your elastic in half and just have the ear loops. Now I have these huge Dumbo ears, and it made them stick out more and was very uncomfortable. I don't even like wearing my glasses because they're uncomfortable behind my ears. She also has another version where you leave one of the ear flaps open to create a pocket. That way you can slip in a HEPA filter if you choose to do so. And I've also heard that people are cutting up those HEPA vacuum cleaner bags and using them in these, which I thought was a great idea. I hope you give this video a try. If you like this video and want to see more of my videos, go down below and hit the big red subscribe button and give this video a big thumbs up. If you have a question about this video or any of my other videos, or would just like to leave a suggestion for a future upcoming video, leave me a comment. Friend me over on Facebook if you'd like to share crafting ideas. Check out my links down below if you'd like to support this channel. And as always, thanks for watching. Happy social distancing, and I'll see you next time.